Welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence, Up Convergence, Unity and Peace. And this week we are going to have an ongoing series with my dear friend Michael Reccia from the UK, who is a trans medium who brought through the Joseph Communications, a very amazing series of 8 books, basically dictated from the other side, but Michael gets to claim authorship. So, but anyway, let me tell you a little bit about Michael. He has worked as a spirit medium for nearly 40 years. In his early days, he was using his gift to deliver messages at regular church services and spiritualist churches throughout the UK. He would hold lectures, workshops, and he also did something called remote postal readings that required him to sit in an empty room with nothing more than a photograph of the sitter and then listen for messages that were given to him for that person. He evolved. In 2005, Michael forged a conscious link with Joseph and began to bring through the Joseph Communications. Initially, the association was a clairvoyant and clairaudient experience. However, during the dictation of the second book, Revelations, the link developed into a deeper trance connection, with Michael completely vacating his body and mind during each communication session so that Joseph could take over his physical and mental facilities to deliver his addresses directly to the Band of Light. The Band of Light consists of 4 people: Michael Reccia, his life partner Jane Keene, Tony, and David. And you'll learn more about them through these books, because at the end of each chapter, they asked Joseph questions. And that's what I love about these books. I can read the books, think I understand it, and then the Band of Light asks questions. I go like, why didn't I think of that? But anyway, Michael isn't comfortable with the word channeler. He feels that because he completely vacates his body, it's more accurate to say a trans medium. But he regards himself as a simple but spiritually disciplined conduit through which the messages of Joseph and the thoughts and observations of higher evolved spirit guides can come through. He views his life work as the promotion of the Joseph Communications mission and a pivotal contribution to the elevation of individual and global spiritual consciousness. When not in trance or recovering from one, which takes a bit, Michael loves Jane, mankind, his fellow Band of Light members, art, animals, eating out, film, model making, reading, and finding the time to occasionally pause and draw breath. So, Michael, welcome. And just give us a little, I know you're going to be with us all week. We're going to discuss 2 books per day. Just give us a little bit from your own perspective on this journey you're on and you're going to take us on.
Yes, as a medium, I found myself dissatisfied with only being able to address a small congregation at a time or one person at a time. And the messages that were coming through were valuable to that person, to that congregation. But I wanted to be able to address the world if possible. And I also wanted to know where the messages were coming from. I wanted to know the mechanics of mediumship. If we were receiving messages from higher vibrations, what are those higher vibrations like? What's it like to live there? What's it like to communicate from those vibrations to the earth? And I thought that on a couple of occasions that I would stop doing what I was doing, because doing reading after reading after reading was quite exhausting. And on a couple of occasions I thought, I've had enough. I can't do what I feel I need to do. And then the connection was made with Joseph and everything changed, because Joseph had a message, has a message for the whole of humanity. And also through his books explained what the spirit spheres are like, what our life is like beyond physical death, who and what we really are here, the things that we are capable of as the spirit people, as actually the angelic people that we really are, and how we can make a difference to this world and transform this world and each other through the transmission of light. And Joseph built the knowledge from one book to the next. He would prepare us and say, this is how something operates. Now I've told you how it operates. This is how it connects to point B, to point C, to point D. So there was a growth, an expansion of knowledge throughout the 8 books. And I then determined that that would be my life's mission, to make this information as widely available as I and the Band of Light possibly can.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. And I do recommend that reading the books in order is really, it's like he builds you up. Everything leads to the next book. And so without any further ado, I think we should dive in and learn about this throughout this week. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Michael, for volunteering your time to be part of the Up Convergence, and we shall begin. Well, I'm so excited to be here with you, Michael. And, you know, today we're going to talk about, I'll say, well, they're all just fabulous books, but the books we're talking about today, Your Life After Death and The Fall. I don't know how we're going to get all that in here. So this 45 minutes we're going to spend together is going to be more like a teaser, because the information that's in here to me was novel. It wasn't something I ever heard any place before, but it certainly answered so many questions. So yes. Michael, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about your life after death. And I love the little subline you have here. If you only read one spiritual book in your lifetime, make it this one. So I'm intrigued.
At the point that Joseph finished his second book, Illumination, he actually said to us, I'm not sure whether to make the next book, Your Life After Death, or The Fall. And then he instantly made his mind up and said, it's got to be Your Life After Death, because that will appeal to so many people. And of course, of the 8 books, Your Life After Death is the most popular book by far. Not because it contains anything that's less spiritual or less layered than the other books, but because it appeals to every person who is looking for insurance, particularly as they grow a little older. You know, a lot of people say there's nothing after death and there's no God and I don't believe in anything, there's oblivion. As they get older, they take out a little insurance sometimes. They begin to go to church, or they make friends with the local priest, or they read Your Life After Death. And Your Life After Death illustrates that death is not what we think it is. It's not by any means oblivion. It is the start of another journey. But it is a journey that is linked into the effects of the next book, The Fall, in that we don't instantly go to a heaven world. We have to work ourselves out of the effects of the fall by traveling through a series of spheres that Joseph describes as cleansing spheres. The reason for those being cleansing spheres will become apparent when we examine the next book a little later, The Fall. And he describes each of those spheres in intricate and great detail, taking a person from the point of actually physically leaving this world to their reception in the spiritual realms and their progress through the various spheres to a point where they are ready to emerge from those spheres, from those various heavens, if you like, into infinity and rejoin the angelic host as the angel that they are and were in full consciousness before the fall took place. So it's quite a journey. And it examines our creative abilities as spirits as we travel through those spheres and what we are likely to encounter and the people that are around us and the reason that each of the spheres exists and how we gradually elevate our vibrations back to the high vibrations that we had when we were the angelic beings that we are before we took a wrong turn and made things slightly awkward for ourselves here as a result of the fall.
Well, Michael, one of the things that's very common is either someone says, I don't believe in God and there is nothing after. and you addressed that a little bit. In fact, I had an experience with my older sister that she kind of, she had ovarian cancer and was very close to the end of her life. And she confided in me and she said, I'm a closet atheist. And it kind of broke my heart because I, quite frankly, didn't feel like I had a relationship with God. I knew what I was told and told to memorize, but that relationship didn't feel it was there. And I felt so inadequate, but I know she was a beautiful being. I have no doubts about her goodness. And but we also hear that some people see a tunnel of light. And is that something that's universal, or is that entry to the cleansing spheres?
I have seen the tunnel of light. I've seen the tunnel of light during rescue work when I've been out of my physical body but still attached to it for the purposes of talking to someone who, funnily enough, didn't believe that they were dead, that there was anything after death. So the tunnel of light is one interpretation of that movement through a set of vibrations to a higher vibration, to somewhere else once we pass through physical death. With regard to people not believing in anything after death, I have an amusing tale in that many years ago I went to visit my spiritual teacher, who is now on the higher side of life. And as I went into her front room, I suddenly said to her, as you do when you go into someone's front room in someone's house, what's that terrible smell? And she said, I don't know, I can smell it too. It's awful. And it smelled like damp leaves or rotting vegetation. And as I looked at the fireplace in her front room, it disappeared. And there appeared instead an image of woodlands. And in these woodlands, there was a body lying face down on the floor, dressed in walking gear. And by the side of this figure, this male figure, was the same man, stood up, looking puzzled. And he connected with my vibration and he said, I don't believe in you. There's nothing after death. And I said, well, there's something going on because you're talking to me. And he said, no, you're a figment of my imagination. And I said, well, the fact that you have an imagination should suggest to you that you are still existing. And he said, I'm a scientist. I don't believe in anything after death. All this is nonsense. And for about 20 minutes, this gentleman who had been connected to me for the purpose of getting him out of this situation that he was in following physical death, argued with me, said that he didn't exist, I didn't exist, there was nothing after death, he wasn't going anywhere, and he didn't believe that he had a consciousness. And then one of the guiding influences that works with me stood by my side, suddenly turned up and said, keep him talking. And he disappeared. So I kept the scientist talking, and the guiding influence came back with a lady who I knew vibrationally was this man's mother from one of the spiritual realms. And she stood by me, and the scientist kept arguing for a few moments and then saw his mother, and his face lit up, and all this fear and doubt fell away from him. And his mother moved over to him, and they embraced, and he disappeared into light. And the fireplace came back, and the smell went away. And the point of that connection was for me to act as someone in a physical body still, because we have a certain vibration that can be read by other spirits, so that I could talk to this spirit and convince him that, yes, he was dead, but there was very much something after death, and it was time for him to move on. So
that's quite an experience. I never heard of these rescue missions before I met you.
yeah.
So, and then I was telling a friend about it, and she says, "Oh yeah, I've done rescue missions." But what's curious to me now, you usually think that once you get on the other side, that there's going to be a band of relatives there to greet you. So his mother had to be brought in. Why wasn't she there in the first place? Was that because of his consciousness that he couldn't accept that?
He boxed himself in with his consciousness. And this is one of the recurring themes in the Joseph books, that we have to decide that we want to move on, that there is something to move on to, and to open our minds to the possibility of there being something to move on to. Many people are so locked into this earthly life that when they pass over, they cannot recognize anything of a higher vibration. They've never investigated it, they've never believed in it, it's not a possibility for them, and so they feel the pull back to the earth plane. And so given the choice of moving on into the spiritual realms and successive spheres, or coming back to the earth, they want to come back to the earth. And advisors, if advisors can get through to them, say, well, you've not had such a happy life, have you? It's not been a wonderful time for you, has it? You really want to go back there? And they say, yes, I miss my business, this time I'll succeed, or I miss physical relationships, this time they'll be wonderful, or I miss the money that I earned, and I'll go back and I'll have it again. And they are advised and advised and advised, but there comes a point through free will where they move back into another life on the earth plane and repeat it all again. When that golden path is open to them, if only they will investigate it and look at the possibility of it, and look what the higher spheres have to offer as opposed to another life on earth.
Wow. Well, right now we have a population of over 8 billion on this planet.
Yeah.
So am I to deduce then that the pull to the earth is so great that these souls that are leaving are going like, I got to go back and have some more, pizza with extra pepperoni, or, I've got to,
yeah.
it's the...
It becomes everything for the soul. That's the only existence they know. They miss it instantly, and they are connected to that denser vibration of the earth because they have invested only in that denser vibration. So they are not open to the possibility of higher vibrations and a more evolved and uplifted vibration than that of the earth. So the earth has a tremendous pull for them because they have invested all of their consciousness as a spirit during their life on earth in the earthly life and nothing else. It is everything to them. It's a love affair. And so they want that love affair to continue, and so they pull themselves back into another earthly life. But every effort is made to dissuade them from doing so. Every effort is made to say, look, what makes you think it's going to be better this time? Was it so good this last time? And they'll say, yes, there was this, there was that was bad, but this was fabulous. As you say, the pizza was great. The huge television was wonderful. I loved the beer. I loved fast cars. I'm generalizing, of course, but there are pulls back. But the problem is, once they are pulled back into an earthly life, those vibrations, and this is, we're getting into fall territory, but briefly, those vibrations that surrounded them in the life that they've just gone through, those unresolved vibrations that haven't been cleared away for reasons that are examined in the fall book, cling to them again, surround them again. And so they find that they are going through the same situations that they went through, perhaps in a different guise, but the same situations at heart that they went through in the life that they've just lived. It's no better, it's the same thing. And they are trying to resolve unresolvable situations until such time as they decide to move on from them. And until such time as ultimately they decide to move on from the earth plane and out into the greater realities, the spiritual spheres, the wonderful realities, the glory and the light that is there for each of us if we will just embrace it.
And we get that opportunity. But, I'll say, Michael, that reading this book and reading the Joseph Communications, it is the first time that I ever saw in print or heard where it said, please don't come back here. Please don't go back to Earth. And when I read that, I went, what are they saying here? Because to me, maybe it was my naivety, but to me, that was such a revolutionary idea that, not coming back to the Earth, that they would tell me not to do that. It seemed pretty incredulous.
You see, there's a great tradition of reincarnation. as though reincarnation is a mechanism that automatically activates once we die. So we come back and we come back and we come back, whether we choose to or not. Now, that never made sense to me until Joseph explained it as, you don't have to come back. There is a universal constant, and it is free will. I have free will, you have free will, everyone watching this has free will. We can make the decisions that we want to make. Now, why would reincarnation be an exception to a universal constant? If God, if our source, our divine source, has given us free will, the ability to make choices for ourselves, to learn for ourselves, to evolve for ourselves, why would that option not also apply to whether or not we choose to come back to the earth? So Joseph is saying, you don't have to come back if you don't want to come back. The reason you come back is because you do want to come back. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Wow. So, okay, so here's a personal question, Michael. So do you have any idea how many times you've come back and forth? And you obviously are on a different mission this time.
This is a very specific mission. And of course, I had no idea of this mission when I was a boy. I knew I was, well, I thought I was going mad, actually, no, because I was psychic and I could see people that other people couldn't see, and I could sense things that other people couldn't see. And I was brought up as a Catholic, and it was frowned upon to investigate anything that was outside the doctrine of the church. And so I thought I was going mad. But as I sort of stepped into the mediumistic role I was supposed to play, I got snatches of past lives as visions. For example, my spiritual teacher and I incarnated a number of times so that in this life we could connect, so that we could find each other vibrationally, be pulled towards each other vibrationally, so that she could teach me to open up my spiritual abilities so that we could bring through the Joseph communications. And I have distinct memories of 3 lives with my spiritual teacher. One as a woman in Egypt, and we were both seers. And my only recollection of that time is being in a dark temple and there being troughs, sort of gullies along the floor in somewhere, connected series of not quite pipes, but U-shaped pieces of stone that had water in them. And it was rewarding to see a program a couple of years ago that was investigating Egyptian temples. And the person delivering the program, narrating the program, said, and here we have these channels in the floor that carried water. And so there was confirmation of me indeed having been in that particular life. And in that life, this arm didn't work properly. I had a withered arm on this side. And until I was in my 30s, I had problems with this arm in this life. In another example, John and myself were quite well off, not at all like this life. And we independently could relate to a house that we owned in, I would say, early Victorian times, perhaps a little earlier, in Germany. It was a detached house. We could each independently describe the curtains, the furnishings, the parklands that surrounded it, and we had 3 children. One day we came out, put the 3 children in the back of the carriage that we owned. We were sat in the front, and we were on the side of a mountain, and there was a mountain road that led down to a town through a wooded area, and a mountain on one side of this road. And there was a storm, and as we were going down the path, down the road, lightning spooked the horses. They reared up, and all of us, the horses, the carriage, the children, me, Joan, who I was married to in that particular life, tumbled down the side of this mountain into a wooded area. And I remember distinctly standing up, and Joan stood up, and the children stood up, and I said to her, "Oh, we're dead." And then everything became light and was gone.
Wow.
In an in-between life, we were male. Both of us were male and were brothers. We were fishermen in China. And there was nothing much happened in that life. It seemed to be a very happy life, and we caught a lot of fish. And that's all I can say about that life.
Well, so did Jesus and the apostles. So you're in good company. So it's like everything has been set in motion for a long time.
Yes. In fact, Jane, my life partner, is quite literally the other half of my soul. Now, it's very unusual for two halves of a soul to incarnate at the same time.
Mhm.
But such was the importance of this mission that we have incarnated at the same time. We've been together before. Mediums have looked at us and said, you know, you've been together before. We say, oh, yes, we do know that, you know. So as you say, it's been set up for a long, long time. And it's vital that this information gets out to as many souls as possible. As you know, we don't do this for profit. We do this because this information has to get out. And we want this mission this time to be successful. And we are running out of time. Not just us, but everybody, unless we make changes.
Absolutely. Well, Joseph, Michael, I was speaking directly there. I think you had a reading that you wanted to bring from the book that you'd like to share.
There are so many topics we could discuss.
Absolutely.
I can only give a taster, but we were talking about what happens to people next when they pass over. So this seemed appropriate. This is just a snapshot from the chapter Transition Through the Buffer Zone to the Arrival Point. And so this is Joseph speaking. I want to take away that fear of the moment of death, because on the physical level, you see people who appear to be suffering and then draw a last breath. You may see people who are in great pain before they cross over. And from the physical perspective, it appears that a great painful end has come to that person. Actually, the opposite is true, because the release of the spirit is a peaceful affair. And it is only the body that you're looking at that seems to be in such turmoil, such pain, and such trauma. There is a moment of stepping away from the physical body, and it is as simple as taking the next breath for the spirit that is passing. One moment they are perhaps in a bed, they are in pain, they are confused, and the next moment there is peace. The next moment they are still very much alive, in fact more so, but there is peace. They can breathe again. They are without pain. They are without the stresses of the physical body, and death has taken place. It is as simple as that. It is not the occasion or occurrence that many people think it is. Your death, dear reader, will not be the frightening experience that your cultures say it is going to be, no matter how you pass over. If you pass over in great pain, through an accident or through illness, there will be the moment of pain on a physical level, and then suddenly you are free of it. Suddenly you are standing tall again. Suddenly you can breathe again. Suddenly you are relaxed again. Suddenly you feel better than you have felt for a long, long time. I digress. If you are sufficiently aware spiritually to accept that there is life after physical death, then normally someone who you have known, a close relative, a close friend, or perhaps someone that you know as a brother or sister on a spiritual level, but have never met on earth, but who you will recognize at the moment of death, will be waiting for you. That is what happens to you if you are aware of the process of things, if you are willing to accept that your family is waiting for you, if you are willing to accept that your friends are still alive. For many people, however, there is an inbuilt need within the soul to continue a journey or to go somewhere, as it were. And for those people, illusions are set up to take them across from the vibrational barrier that buffers at one end with the earth and at the other end with the higher levels of consciousness. A journey needs to be set up, an illusion needs to be set up, and so people get what they expect. They will, for example, step out of their physical body and find themselves confronted by a boat, or an aeroplane, or a train, or a carriage, or any other of many vehicles waiting for them. And they will find themselves with other people who have passed and made the transition at that moment.
Wow, that really lays it out. And it's so comforting to know that it's easy to understand why I think this is your most popular selling book. Is that correct?
It is indeed, yes.
And that's fabulous. You know, I was reading your book the other day, and this thing about the some people go across in a boat, that they have to create this journey. And I was at my parents' home, and my parents are both on the other side. And I was in the living room, and I thought about my father, who really didn't, he was proudly agnostic. And I looked around that room, and there were 5 representations of boats. There were 2 models and then 3 pictures of boats. And so I would just said to Pop, I hope you jumped on the boat, or, it was just,
I've worked on the boat, or one of the boats.
Oh, you have?
Rescue work over the years. And we hadn't told anybody about this because, they think you're crazy. Now, Jane's mother was quite ill in hospital. She was dying. And we went to visit her, and I could see the boat in the corner. And I'd been assured, in the corner of the room, I'd been assured by one of the guiding influences that helps us, that she would be taken over, and she would be cared for, and she would have a pleasant transition. And I didn't say anything. I kept looking out of the corner of my eye and thinking, well, that boat is getting closer each time we visit. And Jane's mum said to her, "What's that boat doing in the corner?"
Wow.
"I'm not getting on it yet. What's it doing?" And of course, the boat did come for her eventually, but it's a good tale to recount because she had no knowledge of the boat being anything spiritual, or we'd never mentioned it to her, but she picked up the fact that it was in the room. When I could see the person who was going to take her across standing in front of it, waiting for her.
Wow, that must have been a comforting experience for all of you to, know that she could see it, you could see it, and, to know that she's on to another beautiful journey.
Yes, we've spoken to her since. One of the, if you like, advantages of being mediumistic is that you have connection still with the people who have passed on to higher realms. My father very often comes through to talk to me, and what is very annoying is that he's much younger than I am now. And he has a full head of hair, which again I don't, And he very proudly comes through in a jacket that I can no longer get into because he likes that. And he talks to me far more now than he ever did when we were both here.
Wow. So that's really interesting, because you're describing basically lifetimes leading up to this mission.
Yeah.
And there are other people who have similar types of skills, that can talk to, I could think of others. And so, and some of them sell classes, so you can do this too, to teach you how to be a medium. And I just don't know, if that's, if it's something that you have brought through over decades, eons, centuries. How does somebody like me who does it, that says, "Oh, well, I'll just take this class"?
Well, I think it's a graded thing. I think in my case, my mediumship, due to the discipline that was instilled in me by Joan, progressed in that I would sit regularly for meditation, and I would never be satisfied with a level that I'd got to. And I was always dissatisfied with the fact that, yes, I could bring through information from people's relatives and friends, but I didn't fully understand at that time where these messages were coming from. I always wanted to know, if there is an afterlife, how does that afterlife function? What's the scenery like, if you like? How do people live in those higher vibrations? And that was a fascination for me. And I spent a great many years evolving my mediumship. And there would be points at which I would be invited to do something different. I was invited to go into trance because, again, free will operates. And so a couple of the trusted spirits who work with me came through and said, you are capable of going into trance, will you do it? I mean, there was never a question because the rewards of doing that are the jewels of communications. But they asked me at each stage whether I would do the work that I was supposed to do.
Wow. So you really brought that through, what you were asking for it, and they answered.
Absolutely. But I think that was a given. I think on a conscious level, I was asking for it, but on a subconscious level, I knew it was going to come through. But I wouldn't be satisfied with anything else. And we're still receiving information. We're still receiving information that adds to the information that we've got thus far.
Right.
And I hope that we can make that available in some way before I go through that tunnel of light myself.
I like that, tunnel of love. Well, I'm going to tell you that book really rocked my world, and I recommend it to so many people. In fact, I have a one ready to go in the mail now to a friend that just lost a loved one. I say lost because that's what our language says, but I always, in my heart, go like, okay, they're on to another adventure, and
yes, we've lost sight of them for a while, haven't we?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, Michael, I think it's time to transition now to talk about the fall, but I have really enjoyed this talk. So I hope if we need to go a little bit longer, we can go a little bit longer. It's
That's
totally
great.
up to you.
Great fun.
Yeah, it has been. And I have a whole lot more questions, but we'll move along. So the fall, now you said that you were asking, like you had questions about how do we all get here? How did this all happen? And I think they really answered you here in the fall. To be honest with you, I still have difficulty understanding it all, and and fully, like the role of the devas and how we're all in this. But I will just say that the fall is the next book that we're going to be discussing, and I'll just say that the tagline here is, eons ago something happened and you were there. So Michael, take us there.
Well, a very complicated subject, but if you ask many people on Earth, do you think the Earth is a great place? They'll say, well, the planet's very nice, but the people aren't very nice. And we don't seem to be able to find lasting peace here, do we? We put band-aids, we put plasters on wounds that we've created, and we think there's going to be peace, and there isn't peace. And we have people who are seeking power all the time, who believe that they don't have enough all the time, who are operating from the viewpoint of the little ego all the time. So they are protective, they are defensive, they are aggressive. And if you go into an office, for example, I've worked in offices many, many moons ago, and you will have someone who wants to attack everybody else, someone who wants to be top dog, someone who wants to talk behind everybody else's back, and even at a sort of domestic level, we don't seem to be able to get on to find lasting peace. And we are damaging the earth blindly. We have almost destroyed the earth. We have destroyed many of the beautiful life forms that exist around the earth. And we're bringing ourselves to the point of no return. Why? One of the phrases that is most used in describing the earth is, why can't we just all get along? We can't all just get along because there is a reason. Where to begin? We are angelic beings, as we've said in recent interviews. No, we are angelic beings. And as angelic beings, we create spheres of reality that we then move through to experience and to add to our knowledge, to add to the knowledge of ourselves as individual spirits, and to the knowledge of the angelic host, and ultimately to add to the knowledge and evolution of the Godhead, however you want to describe God, as he or she or source or divinity. That is our normal function. So we create worlds. We created this world. And a lot of religious people will say, well, no, that's blasphemy. God created this world. Yes, he or she or it did, because we are God. We are part of God. In the case of the earth, we decided that we would alter the way in which matter is created. There was a debate about it between us, the section of us that inhabits the earth, and the rest of the angelic host. Not a war in heaven, but a debate And we said, this will bring greater glory and harmony to God. And they said, no, it won't. You're making a mistake. And we backed and forth with this for countless years as we measure time. But we decided to go ahead with it anyway. And at the point that we decided to speed up the process of creation, we divorced ourselves consciously from the God within. It's still there. It's still within our heart centers. God is still us, but we cut ourselves off consciously because of the decision that we took. Not a judgment from anyone else, not a judgment from God, not a judgment from the rest of the angelic host, but simply a consequence, a mechanical consequence, if you like, of us having speeded up matter. Now, having done that, and having cut ourselves off consciously from God, we then began to perceive lack and loss, and decided that there wasn't enough on the earth, on this planet, for everyone. And so we decided that we would have to take it from others. And thus began our quest for power, our quest for security, our quest for safety. And it's been happening ever since. And Joseph explains that every so often, those desires for power and that exclusion of the God within, of the spirituality, of the spirits that we really are, results in another event, another build-up of creative tension. And he says that the fall has happened at least twice before. What I'm saying, what he says in the book, is that civilization has ended twice before. And it is about to end again unless we make changes, unless we reintroduce into the mix, the global mix and our personal mix, that spirituality that we have ignored. You see, we look to God, we look to our material objects as God. The car is God, the holiday is God, the power is God, the money is God, the status is God, the position is God. And all those things on a conscious level are us seeking for what we know on a subconscious level. But we're seeking in the wrong places. We're looking for God in all the wrong places. God is in here. And once we acknowledge that and start to make decisions from our heart center, that connection with God, then things will evolve correctly again around the earth, and we will reconnect consciously with our spirituality and with the rest of the angelic host. Lost your vocal.
Okay, sorry. So when people say we create our own reality, yeah, we actually really did
create our own reality. Yes, yeah. That's what we do as angels, but we do it in bliss. We do it in joy. We gather together as a section of the angelic host and think, what if we created a world that has this particular set of values? What if we then visited that world, having created it, and moved through those values in order to learn? But all the while understanding that whilst we might be living in a particular sphere, we are also part of the divine, and we have a connection directly to our spiritual self. So we don't forget that. In our case, we come here and we instantly forget, because of the denseness of the vibrations that we've placed around us, that we are part of the divine, that we are part of each other, that we shouldn't be fighting, we're fighting ourselves. We shouldn't be seeking power, because the only power is God power, and that is creative, not destructive. So we've got it wrong, but we can get it right.
Well, that's what I think the whole point of the Joseph Communications is, to help us get it right. And that's why I found the series so powerful and helpful to me, because it just lights up a path to understanding. So we forgot. Did we choose to forget?
We chose to forget as a consequence of the choice we made in approaching this world creatively in a certain way. In other words, at that point where we said, we appreciate what you're saying, rest of angelic hosts, but we're going to do this anyway, and it's going to be fine.
Mhm.
That's when we consciously severed that connection as a result of that twist in creativity that we put into the mix when approaching the earth. There is a way out of it. We have to reconnect with the light that's within us, the creative light that's within us. And we have to remember who we are. I mean, we talked earlier in Your Life After Death about people coming back to the earth. And that the problem that we have subconsciously from that time when we made that decision to create differently is that we still subconsciously believe we're right. And don't we see that in a lot of our political decisions? Don't we see that in a lot of our global decisions, in our relationship decisions? I'm right. I'm right. No, that's the little ego that's talking. Go to your heart center and there discover the correct path. And you will see that you are at best mistaken in the way that you are operating. But we still have that imprint, if you like, that blueprint inside that says, but we're right. It's as though we cannot accept that we got things wrong. If we accept that we got things wrong, we can start to put things right. But first, we have to understand that we got things wrong. And if we need any evidence of having got things wrong, look at the world we're in.
Absolutely.
Look at the world we're in.
So, Michael, the planet, does it have its own consciousness? Is it bound up with ours? Is it agreeable to everything we're doing? Would you talk about the role of the Devas, perhaps, and the planet?
It was initially created as a beautiful sphere of experience. It remains as a creative spirit. It is a spirit. Everything's a spirit. Everything's spiritual material, right. You know? I mean, I'm sat on a chair now, and this chair is sentient in the sense that it is part of universal consciousness. There is no exclusion of spiritual material except in our minds. This is where we exclude ourselves from God and from accepting that everything is part of God and that we are part of each other. We are one organism. So the planet is very much alive. The planet is wounded because of the vibrations that we've encased it in. Joseph describes it in one chapter in one of the books as a crystalline place, a crystalline sphere in its true identity, a beautiful, beautiful place. But we have layered that planet with so much of our detritus. Because what happens as a result of the fall is that we cannot create and deconstruct matter completely. So we create partially. We don't create with the perfection that we create as the angelic host outside of the sphere. And then we cannot get rid of the things that we've created totally. In the normal course of things, as the angel that we really are, we would create a concept. For example, what if I wanted to create a chair? Joseph often uses the example of a chair in his books. I would instantly create out of the sentient molecules around me a chair, and it would appear in front of me. And I would use that chair as I wanted until such time as I didn't need the chair. And I would then dematerialize the chair, and it would be completely gone until such time that I needed it again. Now, that doesn't happen in the denser vibration of the earth. I would create the chair and then only partially be able to deconstruct it. And then I would create something else, and I would layer that on top of the chair and layer another experience on top of that and on top of that and on top of that. And as I'm doing that, the vibrations here become denser and denser and denser, and it becomes more and more difficult for me to acknowledge what I really am, the angel that I really am, because of the denseness around me, because I have created this shell around me. And that's what we do, and that's what we've done since the time of the fall. We have to take that shell away. And we have to start creating again as we used to create, so that we can completely create and completely deconstruct. That's how we operate as the angels that we are.
Well, Michael, did this planet ever work?
Yes.
And you were, I think, in one of your lifetimes, or Joseph in one of his lifetimes, describes Atlantis. Was that when it was working?
That was Joseph.
Joseph, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That was Joseph, not myself. But he says that things went wrong. He says that I was given a wonderful glimpse of life there during one of the trans sessions. And we're not here for any monetary gain, but I'll tell you what happened. He showed me a machine that flew. And and I could see a schematic of this machine, and there were no moving parts, not one. And in that split second, and for that split second, I totally understood how that machine worked. But coming out of the trance session, I have no idea what was in that machine. I have no idea how it works. And I can't bring it through on behalf of mankind because I'm not supposed to. But that was the type of, he said that they set themselves apart from other nations because they didn't want to share all of their knowledge, because some of the knowledge that they had was too dangerous for other nations. But then the effects of the fall were felt by them. And we came to this point again where everything was, civilization was destroyed.
Wow. You know, that's also on the, some of the Egyptian monuments, they also have pictures of, it looks like a flying machine and a helicopter, and but I think also a tank. Like, uh-oh, here we go again. So, wow. Well, this has been really fascinating, Michael. I want to let everyone know that we are going to be showing, we're pre-recorded this message, and will be part of our daily up convergence, unity and peace. And then we're going to have a real treat, because on the last day, Michael has agreed to come back and he will be live on Zoom. And that will be Friday, September 18th. So if anyone has questions, you know, as you go through the series, they're also going to be on demand, so you could watch them again. You can ask Michael in person, because I'm sure I haven't asked them, and you haven't answered them all. So, but in the meantime, I think it's about time I've taken up a lot of your time here today, Michael.
Right.
Really
do you
appreciate
have time
it.
for this little reading that I've
Oh, that's great. Let's do the reading.
It's,
Thank you.
This is one of the, we were talking about the ways to get out of the fall. And Joseph, in the chapter Forgiveness, says the following. This is just a small taster of that chapter. So this is Joseph speaking. There is a word that has been bandied about in spiritual books and spiritual circles for a long, long time, and it is often looked at with some cynicism or with trepidation, as though it is a word whose meaning is extremely hard to embrace and put into practice. And yet this word is perhaps one of the most important words in this book, and I intend to explain why today. The word is forgiveness. Because of the effects of the field, he's talking about the field of human consciousness, the collective field of human consciousness, it is extremely difficult to forgive. Because of the effects of the fall, you find yourself operating from a position of physical ego and physical mind. And the physical ego and physical mind work together to preserve you as the physical being you appear to be. It is therefore very difficult to look past anyone's attack on you, be that verbal, mental, or physical, because you seek to survive, not to be, but to survive. As a result of this, almost everyone you come across is also seeking to survive. And so any perceived disturbance in the vibration that is sent towards you is looked upon as a threat and as something that needs to be put down, attacked, or run away from. This is extremely important. When you forgive, you let go of the vibrations around you that are holding you to your idea of physicality and your idea of spirituality on a certain level. You see, because you are all one, you make connections minute by minute with those around you. Not only that, but you make connections with the present and with the past. And because you are living as a perceived physical being within a bubble of physicality, those molecules that exist and cannot be completely destroyed still have power. So when you perceive something in the past that you consider to have brought you pain and upset, you reactivate those molecules that connect you to the event, which still exists within the bubble of the field. And you reconnect yourself to those people who you consider to have done you harm. In other words, the inability to forgive, which is a cleansing process, actually maintains the effectiveness of the field around you and ties you to those very energy points within the field and within your consciousness from the present and the past. And those energy fields feed and maintain the field and keep the status quo against you. We have come to the point in this book where we are examining what must be done in order to rectify the effects of the fall. And above all, what needs to be done in your personal life. And by personal life, I mean you as a point of energy, perceiving the rest of your physical universe as an individual. What needs to be done most is to forgive. And you need to forgive on so many levels.
Well, I think that's the final word, forgiveness.
Final word.
So thank you, Michael, for this time today. And we're going to put, there's many ways to connect with Michael. Would you like to just say a few words about that?
Yes, we have two websites, thejosephcommunications.co.uk and thejosephcommunications.com. And we also have a YouTube channel, the Joseph Communications, and we contribute regularly to that YouTube channel to discuss aspects of the Joseph books. And recently we've brought through new trance information from a guiding spirit we call the Persian gentleman, and also from Joseph himself. If you subscribe to that channel, you help us to reach more souls, and that's what we desperately need to do.
Absolutely. So thank you, Joseph, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Look forward to it, Noel. Take care.